fitting on the night of greatness where two individuals like LeBron and Shander, two all-time greats that are known solely by one name, that's how you know you're on an individual level of greatness, can share in this moment. And, you know, it was nice to see LeBron James, one of the best, if not the best all time when it comes to the game of basketball, clearly earning all of the accolades, now the all-time leading scorer in the game's history, sharing a moment with another all-time great, sharing a moment with Shander as we crush a three-leg parlay. What happened? Well, just like last week, we go 0-3 one night and follow it right up with the three-leg parlay. Smash it to there and back. Congratulations to Mr. James. It was a big night for both of us. Both of us. Let's do it again, shall we? Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. You know the deal. Look, Kareem is in the house. All right. You know, we had some fun, but let's give some proper respect to another legend here. And look, it's Three's Company. That's what they say. A couple of legends and Kareem hanging out. That's fine. Let's begin with the cat. That's not often we lay this amount of points at home. 12.5? Whoa. Now, Detroit may be sitting guys. They may be trading guys, right? We have to keep an eye out right now to see what exactly is going on with the trade deadline. Also with the Pistons, Sadiq Bey, Bogdanovich, Alec Burks. It's not just a matter of will they be dealt, when they're dealt, so much as it is keeping someone out with hopes that you still have a day, of course, that a trade can be completed. That aside, Cleveland is also just the much better basketball team right now. I don't think that's up for debate. Cavs laying 12.5 at home, where they have been insanely good, even when they went through that little stretch of disappointment, Donovan Mitchell being banged up and beyond. They're not allowing many teams to score a lot. This just doesn't feel like a good fit for Detroit. And normally we see a spread. We're going to do it later in this very video here. Oh my God. Like, that's a lot over that number 7. Like, that's a lot. This is over 12, 16, 18, 20-point victory. Cleveland is not in a comfortable spot right now. And they still, even though they've won 3 straight, they still aren't back to where they really were in this sense of just total domination at home and figure this thing out on the road. They're almost there. Don't get me wrong, but a convincing win like this, we just saw the Pistons lose by 12 to Boston. That was at home, mind you, but still, I don't like Detroit's chance.
Welcome to the Stokastic No House Advantage NFL show for the Super Bowl. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. This show is produced by Mike Lawrence. You can find him on Twitter at AwesomeYo. And today, for the first time ever, I get to do a show with Geoff Ulrich. You can find him at The Fantasy Grind. Geoff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, busy week, as people can probably tell. Not in my usual spot down here in Arizona for the golf tournament, doing a little bit of Super Bowl, media stuff as well, which is kind of cool and lucky. But yeah, busy week and exciting week for just sports in general. The LeBron thing, the golf tournament, and obviously, the cream to the crop, the Super Bowl coming up, man. So
it's good time to be out there in Arizona. I mean, you're getting. Have you been doing a lot of the Super Bowl festivities?
No, I mean, just like 1 or 2 media days, but I mean, like I come down here every year. So it just happened that, we planned a little bit to come down here for this week. I didn't think I'd be as busy as I was, but I should have known that, as soon as I agreed to come down here, I'd probably be doing extra stuff. So, and hey, I didn't even say like the biggest part of this week is it's the first time I get to do a show with you, man. So,
right.
I mean, exciting. Again, like I knocked Emac and I did a show like a month ago. It was the first time ever. So I think you were like the last one on my list, man. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to. There's nobody. I think I've done a show with pretty much everybody who does shows. Probably not quite everybody just yet, but yeah, I've knocked most of them out. So very excited to be doing this one with you today, Geoff. So do you go down every time for the golf tournament? Like specifically, is that when you go down?
No, not always. Like this year, definitely wanted to hit it up because again, I just I do golf coverage, and I hadn't gone for a couple of years. So, but sometimes go down March, sometimes April. But this is if you like sports, this is obviously the weekend to come.
Great time of the year to do it. Absolutely. Guys, while you're coming in, we have exciting news today. Speaking of golf, we just launched our first sports-specific YouTube channel, the Odd Shopper Golf channel. Don't forget to check that out. It will have all of our regular golf content with our crew of golf analysts, including Ben Rasa, former ISU caddy Eric Lindquist, Eitan Shander, and more. We'll be including betting picks, course and player analysis, parlays, one and done picks, and more. The link is in the description. Hit that subscribe button on that channel. And of course, hit that subscribe button on this channel if you haven't already, so you can get notifications when our shows go live. Also, if you haven't already signed up for No Host Advantage, this is a No Host Advantage show. If you haven't signed up, you can use promo code Stokastic to take advantage of our first match deposit bonus up to $100. There are 2 different types of contests at No Host Advantage. If you'd rather play against the house, you can do that. You just have to you hit all your picks. You can net up to 20x your entry fee playing against the house. But what we're going to be primarily talking about on this show are the pick'em contests. No Host Advantage is offering a few different pick'em contests tonight, and they're doing us a favor. They're intentionally creating contests that are likely to have some overlay. This is a rare opportunity in this space, so I would recommend taking advantage of it while you can. If you're not familiar with No Host Advantage Pick'em contest, it's pretty simple. They post a bunch of static prop lines for different players. You choose 10 of those lines. You pick either the over or the under on each line. You rank the 10 bets in order of your confidence. So your most confident bet at the top, you get 10 points if you get it right. Your second most second, you get 9 points if you get it right, and so on down to the bottom pick being just 1. But I should double check if that is true. Is it 10 for the Super Bowl? I wonder if this contest is fewer because it's just 1 game. I'll double check that. But either way,
there's 7 for this one.
Okay, so it's 7. Okay. 7 for the Super Bowl. Okay, so it's different.
I was going to say most single game slates we've had 7, but for the Super Bowl, I wouldn't have been shocked if it was 10. But it is still 1 game, so yeah.
All right,
7 makes sense.
So same general analysis. So your top pick is the 7 spot, you get 7 points, bottom pick 1 spot, et cetera, et cetera. So for this one, you just have to make 7 picks, try and get them all right. And then you get points, and then you are in the field against everybody else. The team with the top number of points, so get the most bets right, wins the top prize, so on and so on. If you're not sure who to pick in this contest, we've got Jeff here to give you some of his favorite picks for the game. Jeff, you want to start by talking about some overs or some unders, or just mix it up, do both? What would you think in here?
Yeah, we can go all over the place. I mean, it is the one on top for us is really interesting. Like, we have projections, with free projections on site. We talk about every time I do a No Host Advantage show, whether it be NBA or NFL, and they're definitely worth checking out. But this one's really interesting. I mean, you've got Miles Sanders with a 60.5 line on No Host Advantage, and also, if you look at the props for this week, Neil, like just from a sports betting perspective, one of the most bet props, I think it was 5 on one of the sports books. Fifth most popular bet is over Miles Sanders yardage. So you look at that and you think the general field on this may be thinking just like leaning over, but our projections have it as it's 75% sim win, 75% probability hitting as an under. Got him projected for 47.8. I'm kind of torn on this one from the fact that I do like Miles Sanders this week. I think that if the Eagles win, he could get 17, 18 carries. And when he's got 17 or 18 carries this year, been very good for yardage. But I can't ignore the fact that this could be a very popular overplay and that our projections are also kind of bullish on an under. So I think that's an interesting one, to potentially mix in. I don't know if I'd put it high up, but I would, think about if you're going to go with a contrarian start with Sanders, make it a midpoint play. I think that you'll get the field leaning over on this just based off that information, like with the most popular props and stuff.
So do you think this is one that the field is also going to, at No Host Advantage specifically? I mean, if that is the most bet prop or one of the highest prop bets on the week, then my guess is that it's also going to be a pretty high bet where people are going to be taking the over on No Host Advantage. Do you think that does that make sense? Do you think that's likely that people are just going to be jamming it?
I think so. Like, I mean, obviously there's a DFS side to this. This is, there's way more strategy involved. People aren't just making their own prop tickets. So I don't think it'll be as popular, like as in terms of like, I don't think the over on Miles Sanders is going to be like the most popular play on the slate, but it would, I think you get a few more casual players this week as well. And also just the fact that I think like, people will be playing for an Eagles win, which, if you're playing for an Eagles win, they have a really good, top rush offense in terms of DVOA this season. That's kind of like going to lead you to like being like, well, Sanders probably going to go over too. So I think there's a lot of factors there that will make the over on Sanders popular. So just a really interesting one to have that pop up to me right off the top as like a strong under for us, because I think it does kind of lead you to say, well, even if you like the Eagles, Sanders doesn't have to go over. Hurts could run 15 times. There's defensive touchdowns that could break into Sanders, usage. So yeah, really kind of interesting one to talk about off the top. I like I said, I don't mind it putting it as like a midpoint play for a contrarian build for sure.
Yeah, and I'm looking at DVOA. I just filtered by the past 5 weeks, looking at defensive DVOA on Football Outsiders. I see Kansas City over that period is 13th in terms of DVOA in the past, in terms of overall defense overall DVOA in those 5 weeks. They are 23rd though in rush DVOA, so it is kind of a tough one. But then also we've seen Kenneth Gainwell playing so well for the Eagles.
Yep.
Kind of have to wonder if maybe he's going to eat into Sanders' workload a little bit. And then of course we've always got Boston Scott there, so a lot of reasons to think that there's at least a wide range of outcomes here. So if a lot of the field is taking the over, then probably makes some sense to take the under, which as you said, our tools already love the under. We've got Sanders projected for 48 rushing yards. The line is at 60.5. So yeah, that one looks great to me. And any other, so we just talked about Miles Sanders. Speaking of Kenneth Gainwell, the line is at 19.5 for Gainwell. How do you feel about that one?
I mean, Gainwell is interesting. I think there's two trains of thought on him, that he's a product of his environment in the sense that the Eagles have been blowing teams out.
Yep.
And he has been getting a lot of his yardage in blowouts. But I'm kind of by the other route here, that I think Gainwell's just looked like a more explosive player down the stretch. And he is more versatile. Like I really think that the Eagles are going to keep him in this game regardless of what the score is. So to me, I'll go against the projections here a little bit, because we have this projected as an under at 19.5, and we haven't projected for 70% under. But I think Gainwell gets there. I really do. Like we just talked about the Chiefs rush defense being not so great. And they really haven't faced any elite rush offenses this year. That's another thing about them. I think they had the weakest schedule in terms of offensive rush DVOA, like their opponents. So if that makes sense. But I like Gainwell is basically it. I think 19.5. I think that with the explosive plays he's been having, I think the matchup is still solid in his favor. And I think the Eagles aren't going to cut him just because it's a Super Bowl. I think this is a player they want on the field. He's more versatile than Sanders. So I would lean over there.
Okay, you're taking this. So yeah, you're going against the tools. The tools have him projected for 17 rushing yards, have the under hitting 71% of the time. But the line is 19.5. We haven't projected for 17.1. So it's not like there's a huge disparity there. And yeah, it just wouldn't take that much. It's like one extra carry over what we're projecting him for, and he's gonna go over this number. So it does seem like it's pretty fragile. How concerned are you with duplicating other lineups in this type of contest? I mean, are you trying to maybe not play some of the plays that everybody else wants to play here? So the Sanders one, obviously, if everybody's taking the over, it might make sense to take the under. But even here, I'm guessing that there will be a lot of people taking the under with the way that it looks. So maybe taking the over. Is that something that you concern yourself with no house advantage?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like if you're new to this or you're playing, we're basically talking DFS. I mean, in terms of you can have duplicated lineups. You're looking for certain props where you think the field may be all in on one side or the other, and then you think the field may be wrong as well, or there's just a higher chance of the field busting there than people realize. So absolutely, I mean, we've seen lots of spots too where you can win on no advantage, you can tie, but a lot of those spots where if you're just using a chalk, you're going to tie with 100 people, you're not going to make that much money. So I know you're a showdown master, Neil. It's kind of same principles, right? Like when you're playing a single game, you want to play for the top prize here. And no advantage has had you need to know your payouts and the prizes up top here, they're heavily weighted. You got to play for first. So absolutely looking for those. We talk about it every video. Is trying to look for those ones where you think the field, you can just gain leverage off it. You can maybe go against it, or you can just even leave it out. So absolutely. And I think another one where you may have some people kind of. Well, I don't know about this one, but Patrick Mahomes under passing touchdowns. I just feel like Patrick Mahomes is just such a popular play, such a public play that I'm just not sure how popular that's going to be under the 2.5 passing touchdowns. It is 2.5, so I'm not sure how many people will be smashing the over there, but I still feel like the under there is going to be a pretty solid one. You're not going to get crazy ownership. It's fourth in our projections in terms of strength. And to me, that's just an easy under. Going up against the top-rated pass defense in terms of DVOA and the Eagles. They just don't allow much. I can't. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how many times they allowed 3 passing touchdowns, but it wasn't much. This is just not a team that you're going to score on, I think, through the air much. So I really love that under.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that you're right. People are not going to be jamming in under any unders really on Patrick Mahomes. People want a game with a lot of scoring. So then they bet for a game with a lot of scoring a lot of the time. So I'm with you. It's not going to be a very popular pick, especially for one that is, as you said, fourth in our tools, the fourth best pick on the entire board. So I like that one quite a bit. And yeah, even over the past 5 weeks, I mean, as you said, Philadelphia, one of the best pass defenses in the entire league. Even looking at it just over the past 5 weeks, they're third in the league. So, staying towards the top throughout the year, which is a promising sign that you can just count on that defense being pretty stout. So I'm with you on that one. How do you feel about parlaying in these? Correlating it here. So, I mean, kind of the same idea. How do you feel about correlating picks? Like if you're going to take the under on Patrick Mahomes passing touchdowns, then are you interested in taking some? Do we have touchdown? Yeah, we have. No, do we have any receiving touchdown?
I don't.
Props. Maybe we don't. Okay.
Usually, so sometimes they'll throw one up, but no, it doesn't look like we have any. Nope.
Yep. So you could I guess correlate Mahomes passing yards with receiving yards, that kind of thing. But we're not really going to be able to. I mean, there's some minor correlation with the passing touchdowns and receptions for his receivers, but it's not a particularly strong correlation. So maybe we don't have to factor it in for that bet in particular. How are you playing these Kansas City receivers? It's been such a mess, just like in general throughout the year. It's been a mess trying to figure out who's going to be playing, who's going to be doing well. And then we had both Juju and Kadarius Toney and Mecole Hardman all hurt in the last game. I think that I'm counting Mecole Hardman. I don't think they've called him doubtful, but no, he was placed on IR. So I think he's officially out for this game. But it sounds like Juju and Toney are both going to be playing in this game. How are you playing these receiver props?
So, and again, you talk about correlation. I think this is where you could start to really get into some correlation. Obviously, you can pair this with over and under on Patrick Mahomes, but I mean, Travis Kelce to me, like I just don't know how many people are going to go under on Travis Kelce. And you think about it, it doesn't sound nice. It sounds it's uncomfortable to take an under on a player like that, but. Look, I mean, like he's got an 80.5 prop. It's higher than we've seen on the books to start at least the week. It may get up there by kickoff, but he was around 76, 78 on a lot of the books. And we haven't projected for 77.5. This is what you probably call a coin flip in terms of our projections, in terms of what we're expecting over and unders to hit at. I think that Travis Kelce under is a great way to really get that lower ownership, to get you access to a lineup where you're going to block out a lot of the field, if this goes under, and it's just going to make your life easier. And you can also correlate it down the line. You mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, he's got some props that I think are very interesting that you can play towards an over. Now, Juju's 2.5 reception prop, I would expect that to be a pretty popular over. I think that people will look at the wide receiver lineup. Hardman's out. Kadarius Toney, we know, is going to play 5 snaps and then get injured probably. So, so I think Juju is going to be a natural over there. But maybe you use both the yardage and the receptions. Like you double down there, and then you take the under on Kelce. And if Juju ends up with having the big game and Kelce just he stays under, that's a pretty nice like starting threesome right there that I think really does correlate nicely. Because I think if Kelce goes under that yardage, it's probably because someone like Schuster. Smith-Schuster, took a couple receptions, moved the chains for them a bit more, and was just more of a primary receiver. So I think that makes sense. I love Kadarius Toney just as a prospect and everything, but yeah, you're taking your life in your own hands here. You definitely could make an argument for it just from ownership that I don't think many people are going to go over it. He's questionable. We've seen the injury thing happen now that it's in people's minds. I think Juju is probably the better play to lean over on if you're going to go under on Kelce, but you could certainly do both as well. They have low enough props. I think that they could both hit.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney, man, that one flusters me because he's like they clearly want to use him while he's out there, but he's running routes on fewer than 30% of plays. So it's just really hard to know what to do with Kadarius Toney because it feels like in DFS especially, like the field just loves Kadarius Toney. He's just everybody watches him like this guy's dynamic. He's going to be great. He's like he could take over maybe that Tyreek Hill role potentially to some extent. And he's not running. He's just out there for like 30% of passing plays running.
I think in his last full game he played like 12 snaps. He did see like 7 targets on it though. So you're like, I don't know if that was a fluke. Is he going to keep playing 12 snaps? He's certainly not going to get 7 targets on 12 snaps every week. So you're right. Like, it's just, I don't even know what to do. Like I said, you're kind of taking your life in your own hands, but he's dynamic, and maybe all he needs is one play. So like I said, I think Juju is probably the more safer thing. We do have him projected for the actually over in both categories. So I think if you're going to lean that under on Kelsey, and I think his over will be popular, that I would just look to Juju to try and correlate there.
Yeah, I really like that idea too. And I think Juju is kind of the other end of that spectrum where people really want to play Kadarius Toney. They're excited about Toney. I think Juju kind of gets overlooked. I mean, just based on like the playoff best ball drafts that I've done. But I feel like just in DFS in general, people have been hesitant to play Juju. But outside of the last game where he got hurt, he's played, over 70% of snaps in 4 of the past 5 of the past 6. Some of those games over 80, running routes on more than 70% of routes, and sometimes over 80% of passing plays. So Juju is just on the field more than I think people give him credit for. And, it's been a little bit since he's had some big games, but just back in weeks 14 and 15, 11 and 10 targets in those games, 9 and 10 receptions. So we're not that far removed from Juju being just a big featured part of this Kansas City offense. And I think there's at least some chance that he gets closer to that again in the Super Bowl. So I like the idea of, taking the under on Kelsey, hope that more of the volume goes to Juju. And as you said, it doesn't have to be much. The prop line is at 2.5 receptions for Juju. So you're really not asking a lot from him. So yeah, I really like the idea of taking that over on Juju. We've got it hitting 69% of the time. The under on Kelsey potentially is definitely one that I like. Any others that you wanted to talk about here?
I mean, I think the other chief, that's going to be the very sort of focal point for this contest, especially, is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's the only healthy receiver. He's coming off his best game of the year, but as someone who's done the fantasy industry, has watched Marquez Valdes-Scantling for 4 years, that he's never put together 2 good games in a row. He really hasn't. You can even just go through the game logs. I think after every 100-yard game he's had, I think the most yardage he's had in the game after is like 55 or something. So he's inconsistent, and he's gone up against a really tough secondary there. And again, I think his overs are going to be popular, just like Kelsey. I mean, 2.5 receptions. I think people are going to be like, oh, he's their number one receiver now. He's got to get enough targets. But, he's really not their number one receiver. It's kind of like a mix of Kelsey and then it's just like everyone else and who gets involved that week, right? So I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling benefited from a lot of injuries the prior week. But again, Juju's going to play. Tony's back. So, we could see more Jerick McKinnon potentially as a game plan in the past game. I think going under on MVS is perfectly fine here. We have him projected, and unlike the Gainwell one where I kind of went against it, I mean, I'm perfectly in line with the projections here. Only 42.5 yardage line, but we have him projected as a 67% probability of hitting the under. So that's kind of where I come in as well. I think he's a really good fade, just from the perspective of everyone's going to be on this, but after Travis Kelsey, where the ball's going in the Chiefs offense, it's just kind of a week-to-week mystery, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think that part of what happened last week, I mean, he had a great game, but also every other receiver was hurt. He was the last man standing among the Chiefs receivers. Even Justin Watson was out in that game going in. So it was just they were really depleted. They lost 3 receivers in game, and MVS became the guy. And I think a lot of people have bought into, well, maybe, after that game, now he's going to be their number one, just based on, so I talk a lot of my best ball and people get annoyed with it sometimes, but it can be informative. And I see that MVS is going higher than any of these other Chiefs receivers. So I can kind of see the zeitgeist to what people are thinking about MVS, and people are very high on MVS right now. So I could see people wanting to take the over on that 42.5 receiving yard line, but we like the under hitting 68% of the time. So I'm with you. I really like that one. How are you feeling about these running backs for the Chiefs? We've got rushing yard props, Jerick McKinnon at 24.5, Isaiah Pacheco at 50.5, Clyde Edwards-Helaire back for this game. Unclear how that's going to factor into things. Do you have any interest in either of these rushing yard lines? Or are you staying away?
I mean, as someone who's backing the Eagles, I hope that they play Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It is interesting, though. I mean, it's something you need to watch and see what's going to happen. Are they actually going to activate him? Is we're going to get any more information? Probably not. I would be shocked if they gave him. Honestly, I'd be shocked if they gave him a snap. I just what they have going with Jerick McKinnon and Pacheco right now is working so well.
True,
but it could happen. I don't have a strong take. My take with McKinnon is more, I think he's going to pop up as a receiver, but he does have a low rushing line, and it's kind of like Gainwell, where I feel like this is a pretty explosive player. I don't have as strong feelings as Gainwell towards the over. He's got a bigger line, and also I think Gainwell is just in a better rushing system. So McKinnon's rushing prop is almost one I'd just say, like, maybe just leave it out. I mean, he could definitely get there. I think he's going to have a good game, but I would rather bet on him as a receiver. Pacheco to me is a pretty solid underplay. He's looked good. There's some talk, about the Eagles not being the greatest rush defense. Man, they got a solid D line. Like, I don't know. I think that I lean here with the projections. It's a pretty solid 65%. We have them towards the under. And I think at 50.5, we've seen Pacheco with like 44, 40. It's creeping up a bit, but now we're getting to this 50 mark. I think you're kind of not really buying the top if you're going over, but I think you're getting to a point where taking the under is like kind of clearly the better play to me in this situation. And, we don't even know what, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to do. If he gets into the mix, then to me, it's a really easy under.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the Eagles rush defense, if you look at the full season, they had not a great rush defense. But if you just look over the past, let's see what I've pulled up here. I think around week 13, that's what I've done it since. So I'm not sure if this is exactly the right time frame to look at. But if you just look for their past 8 games, the Eagles are 10th in terms of rush DVOA. So they are, one of the top third in the league. And I think that even more recently, they might be even better. They've been a pretty stout run defense. So yeah, I like that call on Isaiah Pacheco. You say you're back in the Eagles? Is that because you like? Are you an Eagles guy? Are you like from Philly, or are you just you just like them?
No, I'm not Philly, but as our announcer knows, I am a Nick Foles enthusiast. So, our producer, knows. No, I do like the Eagles. They're kind of my adopted team a little bit, but that's because of all the money that Nick Foles made me in betting him MVP and just on the run to the Super Bowl back in 2017. So. I do like that. I also love Jalen Hurts. He's, I think he was just so underrated coming out of college. So, but there's more to that. I actually like, I think looking at the matchups, I think the Eagles are potentially what we're, a more elite team than people are giving them credit for. I don't want to say like, oh, they're the next dynasty or something. I think they're the most complete team we've seen the last couple of years, though. Elite, rush offense. We talked about the pass defense. So I just think they're a little bit underrated too in the market. I really do. So it's a little bit of fandom, but it is, just looking at this, what I've seen enough, I think that the Eagles are the bet here at under 3. So, yeah.
Okay. So it's just, so you do like the team. They're not really, it's not because you're a homer though. It's because
look, hey, here's the perfect thing. I bet against the Eagles last week. I bet on San Francisco. So it's not just me being a homer. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I really do like this matchup, and I maybe it's just watching the game last week finally got me to think I was underrating them, but I think they're the bet right now.
Okay, well then I'll ask you about some of these receivers. So just give me your favorite one of these lines. We've got in terms of reception lines, we've got AJ Brown at 5.5 as a line, Devontae Smith also at 5.5, Dallas Goedert at 4.5. Do you have a favorite of those 3 in terms of which you'd like to take either the over or the under on?
So I mean, again, it's hard for me to say that, the Eagles are going to come out and pass enough for all of these guys to go over. So I think that you really need to be looking at some unders in these props. It is kind of hard to disseminate. I mean, like, Devonta Smith has obviously come on as the season has gone on. If I was looking at Smith, I might look to his yardage prop. Actually, do you have a Smith yardage prop? Yeah, we do.
65.
It's 65.5. It's a little bit higher, but the way I was thinking about it earlier this week, and this is still what I feel like, if there's any gap between Brown and Smith's totals right now, I think you attack the other guy, or you even just fade the guy who's got the bigger total. Like, so I think going over on Smith is kind of something I'd be interested in. 65.5. I don't think it'll be like a super highly owned prop. And I think that's a good one, maybe even just put as a lower point play. And I think, again, if you're looking to kind of like pick and choose, I would probably say that, maybe you could get, you're going to get lower ownership on the over for Devonta Smith as well. I think he's a little bit more of the more versatile receiver too. They can move him in and out. AJ Brown to me is pretty solid underplay for the 5.5 receptions. I think he's more of the big play guys. He's certainly had a little bit less lower conversion rate in the last few weeks. Doesn't mean he can't come out and catch like 7 balls for 100 and just take over this game. It's a young secondary. I think with all the Eagles receivers, I kind of look at them more as like lower confidence plays. So ones I'd put lower down in lineup, maybe even pairing them with like a Jalen Hurts under on the passing yard, which I think is a good play, by the way. Actually, I just want to verify what his total. Yeah, I think it's actually a great play at 48.5. That you could, pair like AJ Brown under yardage with a Jalen Hurts under passing yardage. Mm-hmm. But in terms of breaking them down, I just said the most bullish on Smith. I'm kind of neutral on Goddard. He's never really like he's going to probably get his 4 to 7 targets, and if he falls in the higher end of that range, he could certainly go over. But I think there's a good chance he goes under as well. But I just like attacking that gap between Smith and Brown, because I just don't think there should be that big a one between them right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a 10-point gap in terms of receiving yards between the two. That's definitely interesting. So you think that they're largely interchangeable in terms of receiving yards at this point?
I think it's close. I think that, AJ Brown obviously still probably in terms of like average depth, a target probably is where you're more likely to get higher totals. But I think what Smith does, and just with what he can do on the inside and moving him and outside, obviously, I think it's pretty close right now that you could kind of, they're to me, they're almost even in my mind.
Yeah. And the tools kind of back up what you're saying. I mean, there's a 10-point gap in terms of what the line is for them. So we've got AJ Brown at 75.5, Devontae Smith at 65.5. But then if you look at our projections, we've got Brown projected for 69 receiving yards, so going under by more than 6. And then we've got Devontae Smith at 64. So just going slightly under, but they're, the gap is a little bit closer in terms of our projection than the line there. So yeah, it does look pretty close. Well, we're running out of time here. Any other props that you feel like you wanted to touch on before we end the show?
So yeah, we talked about Jalen Hurts. I mean, I think I like the under. The other one that we didn't talk about too much with Mahomes is the interception prop. I think that's actually a pretty strong over. And I mean, interceptions are, in terms of like our projections, are always a little finicky. Like one little data point can obviously move it from like 55 to like 60 or 70%.
Yeah.
We haven't projected, for 0.8 interceptions, which is, an overplay. And I just think you look at it, Mahomes, 12 interceptions in 19 games. You've got the Eagles, third in interceptions, I think it was this season. It's a very, very good pass defense. And again, it kind of comes down to how you think this game is going to play out. If you like the Chiefs here, you're probably going to get a clean game from Mahomes. Maybe they come out and get ahead early. Maybe he doesn't have to make too many dangerous throws, but I kind of view it as the other side where, I like playing that side a little bit more. So I see this as a pretty strong over, and it's just one of those ones that I'm just not sure how many people are going to use. So, fading Patrick Mahomes always just sounds gross. You'd rather cheer for a player like that, obviously, and you can cheer for him. But I mean, I think that the betting against him in this point, in terms of just betting for him to throw an INT, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. That is one that not a lot of people are going to want to take. I think either side of that bet really, but especially not the over. People are probably not going to want to take the over on that interceptions prop. So you kind of want to get contrarian in these, just like a regular showdown slate, and that'll increase your chances of getting the full $20,000 in this. The top contest we have is a $20 entry, $20,000 to first. So if you really want to try to capture that or close to it, split with one or two others, you gotta move in some of these bets that are maybe not the highest likelihood, or the ones that people really want to be taking to get a little bit contrarian. So I like that call as well. Okay, Jeff, any final words before we sign off?
No, man. I mean, again, just reiterating, if you guys haven't checked out No Advantage, yes, great week. We had 20K to first. Been overlay on the site, all season. This NBA product as well. I mean, look, you get in now, you can try it out, and then, the NFL's coming right back. So just have a great Super Bowl week, everybody, and go Eagles. So
yeah, go Eagles. And again, promo code Stokastic for a first match deposit bonus up to $100. So if you have not tried it out, give it a shot. So those are some of our favorite picks. If you want even more picks from the Stokastic team, go to stokastic.com. Go to the NFL drop down. Actually, I wrote this down wrong. Let me see. Free NFL DFS data, no house advantage projections, and optimal lineups for the Pick'em contest available on the Stokastic page. So check that out. Reminder, if you haven't, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. We've got some great shows coming up, including NBA Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock tonight. And Jeff, sounds like you're on a few more shows as well. So make sure you stick around to see more of Jeff today. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck.
Go Birds.